Hey guys, Dan here, Joe here as well.
Hello.
With Dan Reviews It, Freaks and Geeks Friday, back again. More than halfway through now.
Hard to believe.
It's very hard to believe, very sad to believe.
I'm not even thinking about it yet.
But let's not, let's think on the positives.
Yeah.
Great show. And this particular episode, we'll find out if this was great as well. It's called The Diary. And to me, now I said right away, sometimes we say, oh, maybe this won't be a talker. To me, this is going to be a big talker because there's 3 plots in it.
Spoilers, I was thinking, beforehand, I was saying to you, I've had a long day, but I still wanted to, especially want to talk about this episode after watching it. And I was like, this one could be quick, but no. Upon thinking about it, there's probably a lot to unload.
There's so much, I think, in this episode. This is the first one, really, where I think there's been 3 really concise plots. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit of a B or a C story, but this is like 2 A's and a strong B.
Storyline.
I feel like.
Yeah, almost 3 A's.
Almost 3 A's.
Almost. There's
and again, they converge.
I don't want to spoil my feeling about it, but I guess I'll get to it a little after the synopsis.
Okay. Well, I would say, let's see. I would say probably the Geeks storyline does not contribute at all to any of the others. Like, I feel like the Freaks and the parent storyline are
direct.
Yeah, converge very well. I think the Geek storyline, if I'm remembering, doesn't really have anything to do with any of the other 2.
Thematically, right? No, not really. No.
So let's start there, I guess.
Well, I guess with the Geek storyline, the thing I like about it the most is I think you'll probably see this coming, more than any other episode thus far, this is like the most Bill-centric.
Very Bill-centric.
This is very much his story.
Yep.
Basically, it's a common trope that a lot of people growing up, going through school probably could figure out. They're playing, is it baseball, I guess, out in gym class?
Baseball or softball, I'm not sure exactly.
I guess technically it's softball.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Probably softball.
I would hope so.
It might have been baseball. In the 1980, it might have been baseball.
They're like, who cares? Because it was softball when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But basically, there's that thing where they're obviously the Geeks, so they have the team set up, and they're always getting picked last, which I admit I've been there.
Is this something that they did in your school?
Oh, yeah.
Because mine, they did it, and I was certainly not usually last, but I was among.
I don't know if I'll be honest. My memory's not that sharp. I don't know if I was not always the last, but I was usually not I was not athletic, so I wasn't like the first one. I was the weird guy or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I could definitely relate to this exact situation. Yeah. But I really liked, once again, the twist, the subversion of it. It's kind of a cool idea where Bill really kind of wants the chance to be athletic, and he wants to kind of actually say, hey, I want...
Surprising.
Yeah, which really surprised me because we haven't seen much of that in his character, but he wants that chance. He says, hey, people are kind of making assumptions about me. I kind of like the idea of playing baseball. So he's like, I never get the chance. I'm always...
He basically said... He doesn't actually say specifically that he's good. He just says, I'd like to see if I'm good. He's like,
I could be good.
Yeah.
And I'll never really get to find out if I've never really given the chance. And because there's assumptions made about me.
And he's last pick.
Yeah, and that's the thing that hurts the most.
The last 4 are Sam, Gordon, who we love.
Gordon, comes back.
And then Neil. And then Bill is the very last man standing.
Basically all the Geeks. And and he's always the last one. So it's like the most humiliating. He also thinks in the social hierarchy of the school, he sees the girls laughing about it. Like, it's humiliating, and he kind of wants the chance. So basically, how do they get the numbers of all the teachers?
So he goes into the guidance counselor's office. And gets it off the little bulletin board there. Now, in an extended scene on the DVD, so I wasn't actually sure that it was the guidance counselor's office. I didn't know.
Okay.
But he shows up in the deleted scene, your favorite, the counselor, and he says, hey, Bill, what are you doing here? So Bill, thinking kind of quickly, makes up, I needed somebody to talk to. My grandfather died. And he's like, when did that happen? 3 years ago. And he's like, and it's still coming up every so often, huh? Well, I have a pamphlet for you. So when he leaves to get the pamphlet, Bill grabs the numbers.
Nice.
So it's a little bit of an extended version, and then they come back and actually improv a scene about the pamphlet and about the death and all of that. So there's a little bit of a longer scene. There's more scenes, by the way, in this episode, because there's deleted scenes on all of them. Mostly it's like 6 minutes, 7, 8 minutes. This was 12 and a half minutes of deleted scenes.
Man, they just didn't want to cut a lot of stuff.
No, and it's funny because it really felt like this was a longer than usual episode. I think because there was
so much going
three
on.
stories.
You know what? This raises an interesting question. Do you think part of the reason for the success of Freaks and Geeks is just kind of that fluidity of writing? Because I often think, especially with the famous endings that we kind of have an issue with,
Right.
I feel
Hit or
like
miss.
Freaks and Geeks could benefit from a slightly longer runtime in a lot of episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a surprise to me that there's several minutes of cutting room floor things in each episode.
Like even that guidance council thing, like it doesn't surprise me. I forgot that little detail of where it was because it was barely mentioned.
It was like a blip.
Yeah,
but yeah, so he gets the numbers to get back on the
and so
plot.
To get back at who he's kind of feels most responsible for the hierarchy of gym class is Coach Biff.
Coach Biff,
so he's gonna. So they start doing caricatures and they start prank calling, and which also has Neil's dad the first time.
Yes, and I want to talk about that when we get to it. But the first person they pretend to be is Gordon's dad.
Yes.
So he says, "Oh, well, you should put Gordon on the team, and he really
wants
should be
to
picked, and he wants to." Unbeknownst to Gordon at all, he's not part of it.
He doesn't care about that.
So,
they just do it to see what can be good.
So Biff's like, okay, fine.
But the next day it works.
Next day it works. He gets Gordon called up,
But Gordon's like, no, what are you talking about? I don't want to do that. What? No, I'm happy to be in the outfield.
Right.
And then Bill tries to say, okay, well, if the coach can be, pushed, maybe, he can get past that stereotype and says, no, I wouldn't like. So we see the coach is biased towards Bill, thinking he's a geek and not athletic and all that. So he's mad again. Calls the prank again with all kinds of calling him like a turd licker and all kinds of things, which
butt grabber,
which is strange. That weird cut, that like zoom out slide and then out of like what is it, his fiance or his wife?
Well,
or
no,
girlfriend?
that's the other gym teacher he was talking to.
Oh yeah,
in the naked
trying
episode.
To go out episodes years ago.
Years ago we had that episode.
But and so he's really angry and he goes into an investigation to find out who's prank calling him, and he has everybody in that gym class line up in the office and do the same impressions. And they're all giving him like insults and say, okay, well, try it lower. Which, okay, who do you think my favorite was?
Well, your favorite obviously was Neil doing
Shatner.
And then how about Biff's comeback?
Biff's comeback. Do it. Okay, do it like Spock. Do it like
Nemo. Why don't you do a Nemo?
And they cut away. Like I wanted to see.
He never did it. But I have a few things to tell you about that.
That was good. That was really good.
Yeah.
Our buddy comes back with the hair, shaved hair. The
buddy comes back. Yeah, the bully thinks it's very funny.
Thinks it's hilarious.
So okay, couple of things about that scene. Number one.
It's great.
So the Shatter impression.
I loved it.
Neil's done it a couple of times on the show.
Mm-hmm.
That is actually how he got the gig. He went in for his audition and did a Shatner impression. And they thought, wow, this guy is an effing nerd geek.
Won't be that hard to act.
And they say in the commentary, they were like, we think that Sam Levine thinks that we hired him because it's a good impression, but we hired him because it's such a
passionate,
awful impression.
Yes.
But he's clearly passionate about it, like any other geek would be.
I'll let you in a little secret. All Shatner impressions are bad Shatner impressions, which is the ironic thing, because Shatner doesn't actually act like that.
No,
it's an exaggeration, which is a weird conversation, but it is interesting. But that speaks to the point.
Well, Dana Carvey's always said that when he did Johnny Carson or George Bush on SNL. Anybody then that followed that did a George Bush was really doing Dana Carvey doing George Bush.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So we see that a lot actually, and somehow the Shatner over the years just became the same thing, but it's all
like you've watched old Star Trek.
People just doing an impression of people doing an impression of Shatner.
And then it gets more like hyperbolic and over time.
Yeah,
but it's
anyway,
great.
So that's number one. Number two, another deleted scene about that moment with Coach Biff.
That's what we call him.
Well, Thomas Wilson is the person, but he plays Biff.
Coach Biff is
Coach Biff. So we see how we see Bill do the read, and we think Coach has figured this out, because the next scene we see him in with Bill trying to say, look, what's going on. But the scene we didn't see is that he actually still didn't know who it was. But
I thought that was a bit ambiguous.
He figured it was one of the geeks, so he comes out in the locker room and he just picks one at random, which happens to be Sam. He says, Sam, I think it's you. Come with me, da-da-da-da-da. And then Bill comes to his rescue and says, no, It was me.
That would have been pretty good.
So that's how. Yeah, but for time they had to cut it. So
It'd be good for Bill, but
classic there.
But we still got a lot of Bill there because he kind of like potentially gets figured out, but he's fine, and then says, well, hey, the reason it's like this and I'm always picked last isn't necessarily because of them, it's because of you and how you run the class. And he's like, that's not really true. How could I change it?
Yeah.
And Bill's like, well, I want to see if I can be good based upon all these preconceived notions. Go against that. You're the teacher. Let me pick the teams.
And by the
Reverse
way,
it.
we've seen
That's cool.
a couple of times now where Coach Biff
It's great.
has really risen to the occasion. He had that nice heart-to-heart with Sam in the porn episode.
If we're talking about a teacher character that shows like a lot of dynamics and really kind of being a great mentor, he really goes against the mean gym teacher stereotype.
Yeah, truth be told, we don't see a lot of this version of a high school gym teacher in television.
No.
But also, I don't know if we see it in real life a lot either. I mean, I think that the hard-nosed coaches on TV shows do kind of reflect some of the coaches you might find out of high school.
You know what, though? I will say...
Not always,
I will
but
say,
sometimes.
Based upon my high school, which I think was overall pretty good, a lot of the coaches obviously are gym teachers, and there's crossover.
Right.
I never really got, none of the gym teachers slash coaches that I knew really were like that. Like they might have been more athletic and stuff, but they were nice to everybody, encouraging everybody. I liked them.
I had a mix. Some of them were great. Some of them were very, if you can't do the president's mile or whatever, the goal, they make you feel like a loser.
Most of the time, the goal for them was just get you active.
And some of them were definitely like that. Yeah. More in middle school, I feel like my gym teachers were like that.
It's probably because high school more competitive.
High school was a little bit more competitive, I think.
Yeah, so that's true. But you're right. I think that speaks to probably, especially back in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I like that, though, that this character has more depth than a lot of the ones we might see on TV.
And also, it doesn't seem
usual.
Pandering. It seems like the performance and the writing, it's just believable.
Well, it seems like this coach just doesn't think about certain things.
And then it's like when Bill says that, I'm the teacher. It doesn't have to be the jocks picking everybody every time. It's going to go the same way. Let's mix it up.
Right.
And he's like, it kind of dawns on him, oh, that's not a bad idea. Let's see what comes from that.
And so, what does come of it?
Well, it's actually probably one of the sweetest moments when, Bill's picking everybody, and he actually tries to think about it strategically. And of course, he does pick his friends too, and Sam gets so excited. Yeah,
him and Gordon are the two.
They're like the first
teammates.
Teammates,
or the two people that are picking.
Mm-hmm.
And Gordon actually picks some decent people.
Yeah,
Bill just picks all his friends.
But it's just good to get picked first. It's just a great thing.
Is the point? Yeah,
and they have a good game. But isn't it like they feel?
Well, they make an excellent out.
They do.
And it's like, oh my God, we got this. Holy cow.
It's basically like a hype of the sports movie moment. Like it's the end of the game, but it's just like the first out.
Right.
And so it's like the game's barely started.
I think it's the bully that says it too.
It's like, what are you celebrating for?
This is only the first out, you guys.
Okay. We got to get to the rest of the game. But the point is, for that moment, it's awesome.
Moment of glory.
And for them, that's great. And to be honest, being an unathletic person, dude,
I got it. I totally got it.
If I freaking hit the ball,
that was a success.
I think one time, I think I was in a game where I actually won a round. I made it to the max. What is that called? I don't even know what that's called.
Running the bases.
Just ran the bases. I ran all the way in. I did it. I did that
great.
once, and it felt good. It felt good.
In football, when we had one of our football units, I caught a ball.
That's probably felt great.
First of all, no one ever threw a ball to me ever. So I must have been the only person that wasn't being covered because they figure, well, they're never going to throw
the ball to them.
And so nobody was covering me. So the guy threw it to me on a Hail Mary pass, I guess, and awesome. I actually caught it.
And I bet that was awesome.
It was amazing. It was great. I mean, it was forgotten within 30 seconds by everybody.
You still remember
But I remember it.
It feels good.
You know?
And I think, I don't know, maybe that's like a taste of what really athletic people that get into the games and follow, that's stuff you go for. And I'll admit, it feels good to do
And
it
for them,
correctly.
it's all the time.
I know, but
us,
when we
it's
can
never.
actually, I have no hand-eye, dude. Football,
Horrible.
toss the ball to me. I'll either
Yeah.
get hit in the face or I'm gonna fail at it.
Right.
I cannot grab that at all.
Volleyball, I did good at.
Volleyball is okay.
That was my sport.
Keep the stuff on the ground, like hockey or something, or
Oh, and then
like
you're good.
soccer.
Okay.
I liked soccer.
Soccer.
Kick the ball, I
There you
can
go.
deal with that.
Yeah.
I catch it, I'm done. I'm
Okay.
done. I'm done. I really am.
I'm mildly more athletic than I seem,
Uh-huh.
which is why I guess I wasn't picked dead last every time. But yeah, I was definitely in the bottom quarter of people. Bottom 25% of the people picked, for sure.
How were you at basketball? I know you're a bit shorter.
Bad because I'm short.
But could you dribble well?
I could dribble, but again, the catching problem. And nobody would throw to me, even if I was open. And I am bad at making baskets.
I am too.
Baseball, I can hit a ball. I can hit a ball and I can run to a base.
Okay.
I'm okay at baseball. Kickball, I was very good at. Volleyball, I was very good at. But basketball and football, not good. For the most part.
Basically, the fact that they had a little success and celebrated, I was like, I
great.
totally get that.
Yeah.
That was awesome. And the way it was shot, too, I thought it was just...
It was
all right.
very cinematically, like you
And-
said,
all
big
right.
baseball movie moment.
That particular sequence, and honestly, this whole episode, just the direction of the cinematography, the lighting, and editing, I think it was all so pristine, this episode. I don't know who directed it, but it was really...
will tell you who
it was
directed
just so... It was cinematic. It was so well done. So well done.
There's a guy named Ken Olin, who, maybe you've heard of the show 30-something.
Okay.
He used to act on it. It was a big show back in the late 80s. It was the first really, serious adult drama where, people were talking about relationships and da-da-da-da-da.
Oh.
He was an actor on that show, and he moved, like a lot of people do when they sort of age out of certain roles, went behind the camera. And I'm not sure if he's directed several of these, but he definitely directed this one. And he's directed a lot of shows over the years. He still does it.
I just think, in terms of the way this whole thing was put together, I just felt like it was the most cinematic of all the episodes I watched. It felt so... I don't know, just everything fit together so well.
Yeah.
It really did, especially that sports sequence.
It was shot very well.
I felt like it wasn't a TV episode.
Well, and there were a few things that they had issues with. Number one, they were shooting on 2 separate days, and towards the end of the second day, it was starting to get a little bit dark out. And I didn't really notice it while I was watching it, but
really?
as they were talking on the commentary about it when I watched it again, I was like, oh yeah, this scene is definitely a little bit darker than, and not the hey, we did it scene, but some of the other scenes in between. And then the other problem they had was, since they were shooting outside, did you notice there was a street behind them because they were just on the field?
Yeah. Like a park or something.
Well, they're shooting things in 1999, so they had to. There were strategically placed school buses in the lot to cover up, and you could see the wheels of cars driving by, but you couldn't see the cars. Which is something else I wouldn't have thought of. But
they don't film a lot of stuff in open fields outside.
Very little. And they were doing it on an actual field, so there were legitimate gym classes on either side of them sometimes.
Oh, okay.
So it was one of their most difficult shoots, they said, because of that.
To try and not get things on the shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes it even more impressive to me.
Yeah.
That's great. That's a lot of time and precision. I admire that a lot.
Yeah.
For that team.
So before we get off the geeks, I do want to mention briefly about Neil's dad.
Neil's dad.
So we saw him for the first time. He's going to get a little bit of an episode in 3 episodes, I want to say, from now.
Okay.
And so he is, obviously the cool dad. He's in contrast to Lindsay and Sam's parents, which we will talk about in the freak portion of the story. But, just kind of keep in mind everything that sort of happened in this episode when we see him again.
Well, I'm pretty sure I know what's going on with him.
Tell me. What do you think?
Do you not
want to tell me yet?
All right, well, all right, okay, maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll turn on its head, but okay. There's that one line about him, shouldn't he be why is he going out tonight? Isn't he done work? Oh, sometimes he has to go wash his clothes, just come back. what is he like? I would think there's an affair or something going on. Probably. That'd be my most obvious guess.
Okay.
Secretly gay. I don't know. What are they gonna do? Probably. Who knows?
All right.
What if he was like in debt to the mob? That'd be a big twist.
But you would love that. You would love a Freaks Geeks plus mob. That's number one for
honestly,
you. A plus.
Probably a pretty good episode. Like what?
All right. So anyway, all right, you've caught on to a couple of things here.
Oh yeah.
So that's good.
I watched the episode.
Planting the seeds.
Yeah, that was good. And the thing they do though is that it's okay. It's very important, though, that you follow along watching this like you should have back in the day, because they'll plant seeds and then come back to it episodes later, like with a certain episode about Kim Kelly being my friend. This episode could also be called Kim Kelly is still my friend.
Is still my friend.
You know, they could have called this episode that.
Absolutely.
They really could have. It's like a sequel. It's a sequel.
It's a sequel to that.
And also it's sort of a sequel to the Nick Lindsay breakup.
Yeah.
Which
we see a little bit about too.
But
all right, well, before we get off the geeks,
we're not off yet. Yeah.
We're not off the geeks yet.
Okay.
I want to talk one more thing about Neil's dad, rather.
Okay.
And that is now the actor you might recognize, Sam McMurray. We've seen him in many things.
Yeah.
He King of Queens and Tracy Ullman Show and a lot of things. I'm sure. Oh, and he was Chandler's boss and Friends for a little bit. Anyway.
That's right.
So they originally wanted Eugene Levy. Who we know from, of course, the American Pie movies and Schitt's Creek and all of this. And what you might not know is Eugene Levy starred on SCTV alongside the Weir's father.
Okay.
So they were like really trying to get at that whole
to get that little
that
niche.
whole little connection there. Yeah,
it's kind of almost like a Mr. Show sort of thing. Like,
a little bit.
That sort of. I don't know.
Listen, SCTV bred a lot of people. You know, Catherine O'Hara, John Candy, Martin Short, Rick Moranis, they were all a part of it. The talent on that show was amazing.
Apparently.
You know. So, yes. Anyway, so I think that's all with the geeks.
Okay.
I've told you all my tidbits. We've talked about the whole plot. And it really does have nothing to do with the Freaks story at all.
No, which is fine.
Although...
wait.
Well, we get a little bit of a laugh when the geeks come into the house later in the show. But we'll talk about that.
Wraps up at the end, kind of. A little bit.
But still not really
connected. No, thematically.
So let's talk about the Freaks and then the parents and all of it.
Well, the Freaks, it's basically... Okay, the parents are, once again, kind of concerned about Lindsay.
Why is that?
Well, because they're worried about Kim Kelly, the Freaks, who she's associated with. So let's say, hey...
The hitchhiking.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They're hitchhiking at the beginning of the episode.
All right, well, okay, that's a great opening because the hitchhike, Kim Kelly is trying to encourage her to do that. They get picked up, and and that's also a theme is that Lindsay has this like naive, but also kind of spirited view of like adventure and like you got to get out of the town and think more. And anybody driving by could be Jack Kerouac, some great artist or writer.
Yeah, because they're reading on the road.
And she's
funny because we just talked about that off air, or maybe it was on the air last week or something.
Another somebody on the show is a fan of literature.
Symbiotic,
yeah. I don't know. We knew. I don't know. That's interesting. But basically, she's thinking that, and they get picked up by this guy who's just like, "Look, I picked you up because I'm a friend of your dad's. I don't know what you're doing. I'm going to tell him about this."
But before that, she starts telling him their names.
What do you do?
Starts asking him questions.
Not very 1980s.
Like you said, very naive though too.
Very very naive and. Kim is actually like, what are you doing? Like, we hitchhike, stick your boobs out, get the attention.
Right.
We're not here to make friends with the guy. Like, we go. Like, we do what we got to do when we leave.
It was hot, though. In the 80s to hitchhike, that was... One of my friends, and this would have been early 90s, probably 91, 92, one of my friends straight up hitchhiked home from, like, a party.
All right.
He met, like, 2 different guys along the way that gave him rides.
This is getting dark.
And, it was like... And I'm more of the Lindsay, and I was just like, oh my god, like, why you did what? Like,
all right, got 2 questions for you.
Okay.
First of all, when do they make hitchhiking illegal? When did that start becoming?
I think it's been illegal.
But people still kind of do. They do it a lot less.
Bit.
I remember when I was a kid, you'd see it more.
Yeah. I think it's been illegal.
I don't even remember. I know that
something about Mary. Remember?
Oh yeah,
that was a classic hitchhiking.
It was like maybe around the time this show came out, it started being like saying no, stop doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the '80s was a big time of like stranger danger and
the beginning of all that. All right. Also,
911 came up.
Were they doing it badly? Because like Kim was like, oh, you gotta like they weren't even getting past a lot.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, Kim said that was a good spot for them.
I was like, I don't know. I just didn't know if there was anything they were doing better.
Well, let me tell you what the original catharsis or, the original storyline that led to her parents dealing with the Kim Kelly stuff was not hitchhiking.
Okay.
It was Lindsay has a shoplifting issue.
Been more intense.
And they decided, they didn't specifically say in the commentary what their stumbling blocks were, but they said that they just couldn't really figure out how to write the episode.
Well, that would be tougher because
I think
that's like robbery.
Yeah, like crime. I think it makes her more of a bad girl, more of a freak. Okay, but it's straight up illegal. Like
you want to
hitchhiking's illegal. Okay, but like
it's not.
There's no damage done when you hitchhike.
You're taking
whatever.
from it's a line you cross. Like it's more like putting yourself at risk.
So my guess is maybe that's why they sort of were shying away from it.
They're still much like this episode. They're still trying to show that even though she is in this episode, kind of definitely trying to read more of the beats of the Freaks and kind of fit into that crowd more. You definitely see more of that in this. Like in the beginning, she's still kind of naive. She's still very youthful and spirited and has a very positive outlook. So there's a good balance of that. So you're right. I think shoplifting might have gotten too intense. Like
I think it may have crossed her over a line.
Like Kim and her being in jail, maybe that would have led to some more intense storylines and getting her be friends with the Freaks.
And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe at this time, maybe hitchhiking wasn't illegal.
I don't know.
I don't know. Like, we'd have to look that up.
I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so the shoplifting would definitely be illegal, and that would, cover a different type of thing, like a different type of crime, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been more intense.
But anyway, so he hears about the hitchhiking.
And I thought it surprised me. They want to kind of find out more about Kim, so they say, hey, let's contact the mom, have her over for dinner, and get some input. And of course, Lindsay's like, oh no, like this is really good. And now, if you hadn't seen that,
now let's keep in mind that people watching this originally on NBC had no idea anything about Kim's family. They still don't really probably know why Lindsay and Kim were friends because they didn't air that episode 4.
Yeah.
So, and here's what makes it even worse. There's actually another deleted scene on this episode where before she goes over for the dinner, we see her at the house yelling at Kim for, getting her into her earrings and she snatches the earrings and don't touch my stuff and so
mom's bad.
So they edited that out too.
So if you just saw this episode, you would say, okay, maybe the mom's not that bad.
Right.
That's this hilarious thing. You're missing this huge plot gap.
Thank God we have things now like DVD sets and
streaming and
streamers because
fans caring about their old shows.
To watch this show originally, you would have no idea why Kim Kelly's mom is even an issue.
Oh, she's an issue.
She's the best. But then, we'll find out a little bit maybe at dinner that she's not the best, but still.
But basically, we kind of see the mom side of the story that she just thinks that Kim's terrible. And of course, they do mention that their older son that has brain problems or something.
Yep.
He's great.
He gets brought up.
And ends up thinking she's a bad banana.
And listen, I love that analogy. Do you know what's funny about that?
What?
So the analogy was that there's one bad banana and it spoils the bunch. Kim's that bad banana.
Put a bad banana in a bowl of fruit. All bananas go bad.
Not to get I don't do a ton of politics on my channel, but it just made me think of all the recent there's a couple of bad apples that are cops, and it's like that same analogy has in different ways has been used a lot this year. It just makes that advice very important. I think 40 years on.
Well, yeah, it shows two good sides because it's like no, you're right because the there's that fear that you have somebody that could be a bad influence. It could affect other people that don't know as well. But we see in this episode, as we had in others, that there is more to that bad banana. Perhaps maybe it's not such a bad banana, can be better.
And circumstances, of course, which they don't know anything about Kim's home life, and Lindsay does.
But basically, they get the impression that from the mom that Kim and possibly Lindsay could be into sex and drugs and
Yep.
and the
And
father's
I go into Kim's room all the time and read her diary. You
her
have
diary.
to.
And so the father gets an idea, okay, like all the kids have diaries, we go read it, and the mom's like, that would be, I would hated that if I was a kid, but the dad's like, no, we gotta make sure, we gotta like defend her. Which, by the way, there's a good scene with Daniel I like, which is pretty good.
At the school?
When he's walking with Kim later.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that. That was a good scene for him.
Yeah.
But basically, I feel like we're diverse. Are we still on Freaks? It's hard to kind of...
Before we get specifically into the whole diary thing, let's continue on the Kim Kelly trail.
But okay, all right. Well, Kim,
of their friendship.
Okay, basically, all right. So Lindsay's like, okay, well, after that conversation, my parents don't want us to hang out. No big deal, blow over. But Kim, though she says otherwise, is very insecure about this. And
she gets really upset about it.
That the parents
even
don't like
she's
her.
Trying to put on a front.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's very interesting. She obviously has sex and she does do drugs and she does do things on the line, but she's still insecure about being judged that way.
Does she do drugs though? We know that Daniel does.
All
and
right.
We know that Nick
All right.
does. She smokes cigarettes.
All right, you know
but
what?
I don't think it's ever really shown that she
All right.
smokes weed or anything like those guys.
I don't know if she does it that much. I'm going to assume she does a little. She's around that a lot. Maybe a bit. She smokes.
Okay.
She's certainly done questionable things.
Yeah.
Right? A little delinquent. I kind of get it. But they have this big assumption she's terrible. And she, we've seen is a little more sensitive than she lets on.
Yeah.
And kind of admires Lindsay.
And by the way, have you ever had that experience where you had to tell a friend that your parents didn't want them around? Because I have. I had to do that to one of my very close friends towards the end of middle school. We weren't quite as old as these guys are, but we were probably in 7th or 8th grade. And I had to kind of tell my friend, like, hey, you're not really allowed at my house anymore. And it did blow over eventually, but it was not fun to have that conversation.
I mean, I definitely had some awkward times with certain friends, like in situations, but like it was, I don't think it ever got to that point where people were like banned from the house.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it should have been sometimes. I don't know.
It ain't cool.
But no, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kim's basically kind of upset about that. And she's talking to Daniel about it. She's like, well, I'm not sex crazed and everything. But he's just like, but you kind of have sex with me. But it's like, it's not the same thing. I'm not a whore.
Right.
So it's like she is maybe not as innocent as Lindsay is, but she has this view of herself where it's not that extreme. She doesn't want to be seen as something she's not.
Right.
Like,
but he kind of points out to her, like, well, in some ways, they might have a point.
And he's like, I can understand why they're worried about her because they care about Lindsay. And it's like, well, if I had a daughter, I want her like hanging out with boys and doing drugs and stuff. Like, even though he doesn't, he's like, I'm kind of a bad guy, and you're with me. And she's like, no, like I don't get it. You're not, because
and that's what's so funny.
It's very interesting
because they don't see themselves necessarily as bad kids, even though they're going around busting up mailboxes and doing all these things that we've seen in different episodes.
Well,
but in their mind, I think they all think, or at least Kim and Nick do. I don't know what Daniel really thinks about himself, but I think he's more realistic about himself.
It's weird because I feel like that whole conversation seemed like Daniel was looking at it from their perspective, but maybe I think Daniel seems like he's somebody who kind of embraces the role.
Yeah.
Because he might not have the highest esteem, so he's just kind of rolling with it. But he doesn't say that he necessarily thinks he's bad. He just thinks, they'd assume I'm a bad guy.
And I think she is more maybe situational.
Yeah.
Because of her home life, and then she comes to school and she's hanging out with Daniel and the others.
And we've seen that if she was in a different environment, a softer side might come out. She might go a different path.
Right.
So yeah, she's a little more malleable, like a lot of kids would be.
Yeah.
So it makes sense. It's a very, very great conversation.
And Daniel is also the only one
it's kind of a voice of reason.
Actually is on Lindsay's side in this episode. Nick was just broken up with.
Yes.
So he's hurt. Ken is referenced in the episode. I have to go help him at the shop. But no Seth Rogen again. Why is he in the credits? We don't know. Oh, did you look, by the way, in the credits for Jason Segel rubbing his eyes and making him look real stoned? Look next time.
I did. I forgot again, but I got to look when next time. But I'll tell you what.
Yeah, so Nick's mad.
That leads to another great little scene.
Okay.
I loved it. I thought that was a subtle little shift in
Daniel
the dynamic. Yes, because at the table, the other two people she's closer to, she's ending up like closest at the moment to the person she was most drawn to, and then pushed away because she hated.
Right.
And he's just like, wow, you just draw everybody away. And he's just hanging out. I thought it was a very interesting little dynamic there.
Yeah, it was. I mean, she basically got to the table, and Nick immediately was like, "Oh, I told Ken I would help him at the shop, so see ya." And then Kim makes up some excuse as well,
She's
right?
Mad,
and then,
yeah.
But it allows them to kind of have a little heart-to-heart conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
But I forget whether that was before or after the whole Spanish class thing.
That was I think that would have been okay. That would have been before probably the Spanish, because she tries to talk and say like, okay, I don't necessarily feel that way.
Oh, right.
Like, I don't believe that. Doesn't quite let the conversation go.
You're right.
But it does lead to another great English class scene though, because they early reference, Jack Kerouac.
They talk about it on the road.
And she's like, what's that book we've been reading in class? Like, don't you get it? What? Like, But then the teacher kind of picks on Kim Kelly, like, tell us the theme.
Mm-hmm.
And, she tries to kind of BS it and clearly doesn't.
It's horrible BSing.
Horrible. Oh, yeah, reads the title.
You would have done so much better.
Probably.
Yeah.
Actually, that's one of the classes I probably would have excelled more at.
Yeah.
But she does kind of open up about her opinion honestly. And the teacher, being kind of snobby, is like, well, what do you know? And then Lindsay actually says, well, I've heard that before.
Yeah,
she's like,
I see what she's saying.
What she's saying, because you know what? Like, if you put this out here, like, it kind of goes on and on. It doesn't.
And then
really
she quotes
focus.
Truman Capote
about it. Like, it's not writing, it's typing, and it's like, if I submitted this, I wouldn't get an A. And it's like, I've heard that criticism about Jack Kerouac.
I've never read On the Road, but
that's
a pretty popular opinion. Yeah,
it's one of them. So it's like, that's a valid one, but the teacher didn't like it because he likes the book.
Right.
And Pearls Before Swine, Jake Siegel's
but
like,
it showed. I know that was classic.
That was good.
But it showed that, look,
She's
I really
do.
Yeah, I really do want to be your friend. Like it's basically her way of apologizing. For
it was good, standing up for
her parents.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was really good. I'll stand up for you here, and by also kind of offering a valid critique that actually kind of increased the backup to Kim's position.
Yeah.
In a way, it actually reinforced it.
So then, towards the end of the episode, she was like, "Hey, Kim, what are you doing? Like, do you want to come over?" And Kim's like, "I don't. What about your parents?" And she's like,
"Whatever.
Don't worry about it. Let's just go.
Let's just do it."
And so I thought that was great.
Very good.
And that's sort of where their story ends, and everything converges at the house on this last scene with the parents. So let's talk about their story. Let's go back to in Lindsay's room reading her diary.
For a split second, I thought you meant like the whole show.
No.
That's where
the episode ends. The episode ends.
Kim Kelly
back at the house.
is still my friend.
Kim Kelly is still my friend.
Yes.
This episode could have been called.
I'm serious. But we'll go back to the diary. And
so they enter. They decide to finally do it. Like you said, the mom hesitant, doesn't want to do it.
Dad's
I
coming
can't imagine if I had a kid. Dad completely on board with it.
Read the diary.
And nobody was home. They were the kids were both at school, and they still were like really scared about it and hesitant,
getting caught,
and this and that. And then he thinks he's stumbled on, oh my God, look, she has birth control pills.
And it's just like, my daughter with a sewing kit. Oh, they like licked stamps with LSD.
And by the way, if you couldn't tell from me telling you earlier, Joe Flaherty just loves to improv and does the bits, and they have like 4 minutes of him doing that on the extended scenes. He's just finding different things in the drawers and talking about different things. But yes, always a classic there. But they find some things in the diary that maybe they don't want to read.
Lindsay, that's the biggest surprise is they don't find anything particularly damaging about what Lindsay says, but mostly towards them, that she thinks they're just kind of boring. And do they even love each other? They're not exciting.
Are they going through the motions?
Like, I don't know if I love them, but I don't know if I really that impressed by them. And they're like, wow, like,
well, yeah, she says something like, I love them, but I don't want that life.
Like, they're basically robots. Can robots love? And it really impacts them, and it makes them like kind of look at their lives and their marriage like, wow, are we boring?
Well, more the mom. I mean, Joe Flaherty doesn't really care for a while
as much, but I think it hits him a little too. I think that silent moment kind of affected the book. Yeah, it's just that he's the man, so it doesn't really affect me.
Like that.
But it does, and we see that later.
Well, one of the things that she mentions is that, like, dinner's always ready, and
same.
It's almost the same every time, and he will never clear the plates.
And he just because it'll affect his masculinity, and she just like kind of lives to serve him dinner every night. It's the same, and that's all it is.
And she really takes that to heart. The mom.
Oh, the mom gets really upset. It's like, oh, like how can I mix this up? Let's like try to impress the kids by cooking Cornish hens. Which, by the way, Cornish hens, great meal,
dude. It looked so good. She did such a great job with it. And they just tear it apart. They start like literally playing with the food, like doing the arms of the hen. And
for holidays, like that's one of our favorite things to do is Cornish hens.
I don't know if I've ever eaten a Cornish hen, but my God, that looked good.
It's great because if you have a couple people, everybody can get a little hen.
Okay,
it's like a little personal chicken. But basically, anyway, it's a good meal. But
they were playing with them.
They were like making fun of it, and she was trying to be different and fancy and mixing it up and. Nobody really cared, and the dad was making fun of it, playing with it, like, I'll go make myself a sandwich, which would hurt her feelings, and it's just that basically.
And then she asked him to clear the table too.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Why would I do that?"
Yeah,
and that was rough.
And I was laughing at it, and the girlfriend came by and was like, "Is that funny, Joe?" Like, I'm laughing at the preconception.
Right.
It is what is the trope they're making fun of, but yes, but a lot of people would have thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And that's the idea. So, like, it kind of boils down to like a really kind of sad scene, actually, where the mom's just like, you know what, I give up. Maybe
I told you we'd get a good episode with the parents.
This is great for them.
Yeah.
This is a very parent-centric. It really is. It's almost their episode too. But basically, she's like, you know what? It doesn't matter what I do. We don't really have any romance or passion. We are boring. We're just going through the motions, like. And she's like, I give up. And he's like, hey, I like things the way they are. I like. Yeah,
she tries one other meal. It's a fish.
Oh, the salmon that
she
burned.
She burns as they're sort of arguing a little bit after he comes home from work, and then it starts this whole conversation.
That's whole conversation, and that there's two. It kind of backs around. There's the two different philosophies. We actually see the dad is like, you know what, like, hey, I like what I like because I like it. Like I found what works for me, and I think. Like, when she's getting really upset, he starts to get upset. And he says, like, you know what? Hey, much in the same way I like what I like to eat. Like, I like you for who you are as it is. Like, that's enough for me. And, when I go to work every day, I think about you all the time when I'm, like, selling stuff at the store and I'm stocking things. I do it to support you and give you the life.
Well, she threatens to basically get a job.
Yeah, like, I'll go back to school.
She's like, this is boring for me. I'll go back to school.
And he's just like, well... He's just basically like, well, what I do for you to kind of like give you the life we have because that's what I do because I love it.
And I think that was startling to him because
he's like, you don't think I like
it was like
you don't think I value you.
Well, and I think he felt in that moment that she
what do
really
I do?
Is unhappy
and it's like what I'm like
and why
like I do all this stuff for her like I do everything I do is for her like she doesn't.
At the end of the day, it's really a miscommunication issue.
Oh, classic,
which is classic
for a lot of couples.
That time, certainly.
Certainly back then, but in general, I could see it. And I thought that was very good. He just kind of breaks down like, I love you, and this is for you, and it's kind of a beautiful little moment. And they start kissing, and then it leads to some loving, which leads into the geeks discovering it.
So the geeks come home and. The parents are doing it in the bedroom very clearly.
Been there for an hour, arguing.
We kind of hear, some squeaking in the bed. And they're like, oh my God. And then, of course,
Neil's a pervert.
Look,
Neil's into it.
Look, if I was at one of my friends' houses.
Wow.
And I heard their parents doing it.
Just keep listening.
I think I would. I don't know. I'm one person who I've never walked in on my parents doing that. I've never heard them do it. So, like, for me, I don't know. I would maybe find that intriguing and, whatever.
I'm
a Neil. What can I say? I'm a bit of a Neil.
I don't know.
You're into it. All right. So, but then they end up watching TV, and then Kim and Lindsay come home, and they say the line that you just referenced, like, oh, they've been back there for an hour. Are they fighting? No.
But then they come out, and they're like, hey, oh yeah, hey there, Mr. and Mrs. Weir. Oh, hey, Kim. Nice to see you.
Kim gave me a ride home, and he's like,
glad you gave her a ride home.
Thanks for giving her a ride home,
You're
Kim.
good. They're all disheveled and stuff. Like, hey,
what?
Heck, making food. We'll order from the pizza. Just play nice and let us know when it's here.
Let us know when it's ready.
Let us know, and we'll come on, hang out. It's more laid back, and hey, It's great.
Yeah.
It's a great, just family
Great way to end the episode. One of my favorite endings, I would say.
Oh, great. And then they're like, oh, they're doing it in there? Oh, and they're both kind of grossed out, fade to black.
Yeah.
Great ending.
Because of the way everything converges like it sometimes does on the show.
Lovely.
But not only that, but yeah, I mean, it really, it took the whole Kim Kelly thing, though, and made them realize that, oh, you know, maybe Lindsay was right the whole time to say that about us, which means maybe she's right about Kim. You know, in that moment, I think they probably weren't thinking that deeply into it, but it was more like, hey, Kim,
let's not rush things too harshly. Maybe Lindsay does have a point to some degree.
Yeah.
Like, they think their daughter's smart, has insight, they trust her, so maybe they learned a little bit about themselves through that.
Well, and that's the thing, like you said, when they read her diary, all they really found out was stuff about themselves. They didn't really learn much about what Lindsay and Kim are up to.
No, which is...
Or Daniel, or any of that.
Nope.
Now... this is a popular thing for parents to do, is to snoop and look at their kids' diaries and all of that.
Yeah.
I believe that did not happen to me. I don't know.
He believes.
I don't know. But I remember very clearly there was an episode of Roseanne where Roseanne did it to Becky, and we were watching the show as a family, and my mom was like, oh my God, like, I would never do that, da-da-da-da-da-da. No. But I really don't think they did. But I had never even thought of it until I saw that episode. I had never thought, like, oh, somebody could go in and read this. So I think I was definitely a little more cautious, at least for the next few weeks or maybe a couple months, about what I put in there, just in case somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, classic thing that happens, another real situation. Well, and part of the reason my mom said she wouldn't is because her mom did it to her.
Oh.
That episode, made us talk about it, and she was like, oh, yeah, like, my mom did that to me all the time, and it was horrible, and I wouldn't want to, invade your privacy like that.
Nobody like that.
So, one here, we see it, that her mom did it to her, and so she doesn't want to do it to Lindsay. But she ends up doing it anyway, so there you go.
Didn't feel good about it, though.
Horrible.
Very horrible.
And even worse after she read it.
She probably just shouldn't have read it.
Yeah. But
there
it helped in the end.
A benefit to it. So
yeah, it actually...
Maybe she should have.
A little bit.
So wait,
marriage.
It's encouraging to kind of figure out what's going on with your children and be a protective parent,
So the point is, snoop away, everybody. The bottom line, snooping is love.
I think the point is love, good balance, like guide your kids, but also try and trust them.
Yeah,
is kind of the idea, right?
Yeah,
the show. So I like it.
Yeah, I like it. Best ending, I think, so far.
Yes, actually, not the darkest like that one with the.
Definitely not the darkest.
Yeah, with the Daniel one.
Not the darkest, but I think a very fitting,
good ending
end to the story, and it really was, everybody sort of got
their
something
resolution.
Yes, like we talked last week about how NBC was really hounding Apatow and Feig to have a happy ending. Have everybody win one.
Yeah.
And so the boys do win a little bit. I mean, they get that great play,
the friendship,
even though they lose the game, but they don't care about that.
That's not what it was about.
Right. They got what they needed out of it. They got to pick the teams. So they weren't picked last, and then they had a great play.
Yes.
Kim and Lindsay's friendship was a win, and then the marriage was a win.
Yeah, so there were some positive wins.
Even though the geeks were certainly grossed out at the end. I don't think Lindsay and Kim were as grossed out. They were just kind of like...
cringy, like, this is awkward.
Yeah, like, this is awkward. More than anything.
But yeah.
But they're a little older, so I think it's not as...
That's fine.
...big of a deal to them.
It's not that much of a loss.
But, so, everybody kind of got something out of this episode.
Parents really got something.
Parents got many things in the hour.
They got the most, actually.
But the geeks and the freaks all got something.
Everybody got
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen gets nothing.
He got the week off.
He got a free credit. He gets money for nothing.
Money for nothing.
Which is the best job an actor probably wants.
Yeah,
I mean,
classic.
I guess.
Yeah, I should say so.
Literally, with top billing, he's not even half the show.
Yep, I know he hasn't been in like
half
the
of them.
episodes. It's very bizarre.
Oh, it's great.
But anyway, all right. So that's the plot. 50 minutes into the episode.
Well, you're 21
That's the
minutes
plot.
on the camcorder would not have been enough.
No, I brought my camcorder, but I guess maybe next time. So, all right. Well, before we wrap up, what else is there to talk about with this episode?
Well,
Great things happening.
I think it's very good. All right. Once again, we've got another one where. Was it the last one? I feel like, was it the last one where I said it's just really basic, but it was really good?
Yes.
And there's a lot more that I thought.
Really,
last couple.
the last two, because the virginity one.
Like I keep saying, you know what? It's good, but
as well.
But I'm not. It's not going to be that much to talk. But then I'm like, no. This episode.
I knew this would be a big topic.
This episode
There's too much going on.
It's so well directed and well written, and everything is so good. I wanted to say to you, I feel like because all three groups have something and it all intersects well, I feel like it's the perfect balance for all three storylines.
I agree.
And in this show, that's the first. And I'm like, it's so well done. It's so smoothly integrated.
Well, that's what I mean. Like that's what we said up top. Like this really could be 3A stories. I mean, every story gets almost at the same amount of attention.
And I would say
maybe the parents a little less, but not that much.
And everything that happens in it is so like intense. And there's a lot of good performances there, and so many great lines from the dad, and great for the mom, like good drama.
Yeah.
And I want to say, the geeks have a B storyline, but literally for Bill and the coach, their dynamic, that alone was like
was great,
riveting. That whole development of that there was fantastic. It's just such a incredibly well put together script,
and
it's so good.
Maybe some foreshadowing with Neil's dad.
A seed planted about another episode, probably.
A little seed that we're going to hear about maybe in 2 or 3 episodes.
I mean, that's the biggest thing I wanted to say. I mean, I think everybody was on point. I really am liking Kim Kelly even more as a character.
Yeah.
I like her.
And in terms of the Freaks, it really was Lindsay, Kim, and Daniel. Nick was in it very little because he was broken-hearted, but he only had 2 scenes.
I know. I was expecting, I'll admit, for them to kind of, I think I mentioned, for them to feed into it more.
Yeah.
Not really. They dealt with it more realistically. Like, there's awkwardness. Hopefully, you've seen the last couple episodes.
Yes.
So you understand why.
But they're still all friends.
Yeah.
Lindsay's still a part of the friend group.
Yeah.
Which obviously didn't happen with that other gal that he went out with.
Oh, yeah.
But, who knows if she was even ever part of the friend group. We don't know. But,
she was around.
She was around. But yeah, I mean, this also, I think, is kind of a standalone episode.
You know what?
I mean, like you said, yes, they sort of touch a little bit on the ex-boyfriend thing, but like, you don't really need to know that going in.
Honestly, I think this is not...
There's nothing about Cindy in the episode, so she's paused.
This is another episode that I think is like a great encapsulation of the whole show.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to say, what's Freaks and Geeks? I think this one is like, there is something great.
Yeah.
Everything is sold here. I will say, surprisingly, this is a very, very Sam light episode.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, this was definitely focused more on Bill.
He's there, but I'm like, of all the characters in here, even Nick has a little more going on. Sam's just kind of here this episode.
I agree.
Which is fine, but like I just realized he doesn't have much to do. Which I don't really care.
No, that's true.
Because he's so many.
Not a Sam-heavy episode.
Doesn't really take away from it for me, but I just noticed that.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Well, I think we can all agree. I think said it a few times. Lindsay is the main focal... Lindsay is the
main character.
The main character.
Yeah.
Linda Cardellini is the star. If there's one star of Freaks and Geeks, it's her.
It's an ensemble, but it's her story primarily.
Yeah. And secondary, Sam.
And his friends.
And the family and all that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean... I agree with you. That's not something I necessarily thought of. But, look, he is a part of it because of Bill's
storyline,
focal point, and storyline. So, yeah, I mean, he's part of all those scenes. He's part of the prank phone calls, and he's part of the parents' stuff with the game hens and all that.
In this episode, though, he is relegated to a supporting player.
Yeah.
And they're all scenes.
He is.
Which is cool.
That's true.
Because usually that's not that way, and it was fine.
Yeah.
I thought Neil's Shatner bit was pretty great.
Well, of course, that's going to be your favorite part of the whole show.
But I'm surprised that they brought it back again. I thought one Shatner, one Star Trek reference was enough.
This is the proof that he really is a geek. Okay.
Oh man.
But look, all the things you're saying are true. This episode does encapsulate, I think, the spirit of this show, everything about this show. And I'll tell you what, the lady that wrote it who they did a commentary with.
Lady.
It was a woman, and it was her very first full episode writing credit on a TV show.
Damn.
She has gone on to write Buffy.
Ooh.
She wrote some of the 90210 reboot. She still writes for, sort of teen dramas and, little off the beaten path type shows. But this was her first. She wrote some episodes of the show Las Vegas with Josh Duhamel.
Oh.
So she's been at it a while, but this was her first full writing credit.
Wow, what a great starting
What a gal.
script. That's very good.
Yeah.
What's her name? Do we remember?
I don't, unfortunately.
Dang it.
And
Well,
I can't look it
put
up.
it in the description or something if you can. Give her a shout out if you can. That lady, great job.
Gosh, I want to.
We should
I
have
want to guess something too. I feel like it's Kathy or Kathleen something, but I'll have to look it up.
But great. That's awesome. Like
yes.
her and those
She did a
lighting
great
guys
job.
that made the furniture in that one basement.
Yeah.
Like there's some great talent.
A lot of talent.
And the director, the whole,
and the director of this one, yes.
I think that the script and the direction just combine, and it all combined is such a good.
So
product.
everything combines to our second A+ episode.
I was thinking it could be A+. It's just
I think this is a perfect episode. There's nothing that I would
wasted.
improve upon. For them to fit 3 A stories into 43, 44 minutes, and have everybody have an arc.
It clicked so well.
It clicked so well.
I'm fine with that. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing.
I told you there'd be other A+s coming up.
It's just so solid.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it's funny. This isn't one that this is not a
Important.
go-to for me when I think of
Classic.
like classic Freaks and Geeks episodes. I think a lot of really the first few, like the beer party.
Beers was good. Beers and Weirs.
I do think a lot about the cheating on the test episode.
That's good.
These are some main things. The Lindsay and Nick, couple episode storyline,
Halloween.
relationship. Halloween is a big one, obviously.
Even the first episode with the bully
The
fight
pilot,
is pretty.
the pilot
is
I
pretty,
think of
yeah.
often. So this isn't like a go-to, but I see so much of my own youth in this episode. The being picked last, the keeping the diary, all of that.
Yeah, it's selling what I always say is that, it kind of captures, there's that magical realism that they kind of skirt the line with all these teen dramas, but with this show, the acting and the direction, the writing, it just comes off with such believability.
Even that scene, we didn't even talk about it, but even that scene with the Spanish teacher,
Oh.
where Lindsay is trying to make a
In
point
Espanol,
to Kim, and it's like that is so pitch
Mi
perfect.
clase es importante.
Yeah.
Ahora, like right now, like come on, like the teacher's just like, yeah, stop talking to your friend. It's time to come to class, but still going in
But
Spanish.
makes her do it in Spanish.
I love an English teacher.
It's
too.
just the English teacher was good.
It just seems very true. Yeah.
The whole thing, really. What an episode! What a show! The diary, sewing kit, the whole bit.
Oh man, she's got a sewing kit.
Classic. He thinks it's birth control pills.
So many great lines.
But yeah, this is another great one. I mean, this is one of the best of the best, I think. In all reality.
And also, like I said, I think Lindsay, just as a character, is growing really well too. Like you can see her kind of fitting more into the Freaks. Like she's kind of trying to be bad, but she's still coming off as so innocent.
She's still bad at it. She's bad at being bad.
It's like, is it ever really going to be her? I don't know. She's just
when they get in that car and she starts like,
oh hey, what's your name?
My name's Lindsay. This
Why
is
live
my
here?
friend Kim.
You
It's
can go
like,
like she's waiting to get murdered.
Yeah,
like,
Kim is just like,
what are you
shut
doing?
up.
Like
Yeah,
that's kind of adorable.
Yeah.
That's like
That's Lindsay.
purity
That's
of
the character.
the goodness of her.
Yeah.
I like her. She's a good character.
All right. But we're going to get it under an hour here. So we're going to say our goodbyes. Please subscribe. Comment below. We always enjoy talking about Freaks and Geeks with anybody.
Yeah, and if you want to have requests about other shows or movies for him to review, I guess we're doing some of those.
We're still debating on what shows to do after Freaks and Geeks too. So if you have any ideas, let us know.
I think we
We
decided.
have a couple of ideas, but maybe we've decided. I don't know.
I think we did.
Okay, on the
We'll
one
find
I
out.
said tonight.
Yeah,
We'll see. All right. All right. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.